1 meter?
Yeah,
I don't know,
exactly.
but in the
Because
heliocentric model,
I get to
in the
claim that,
heliocentric
and because
model, light
it's true.
in the heliocentric model, light definitely has a limit to go from A to B. Like it may leave from A and never reach B. There's definitely
Yes.
a limit in the heliocentric model.
Yes,
Uh,
it's true because of expanding of space.
It
No, but, I mean,
also has a definite speed, so we can actually calculate based on the time that it takes for the signal to come back. We can calculate what the distance is going to be.
There's also something here on Earth called the light attenuation, and that would also make there be a limit just right here on Earth.
no. Photons do not just die out. They can lose energy, go to a longer wavelength, but photons don't, they.
I know. Do you know what light
they're in-
attenuation is?
In what, explain what you're talking about.
The answer is no. You don't. Look into light attenuation, and you'll see they can leave from A and never reach B because they can be attenuated.
And what's attenuated mean?
It means they're not going to reach. They might not reach B.
I think it means
There's a thing
than
called.
reach.
There's also a
Again,
thing called There's also a thing called atmospheric turbidity. Between attenuation and turbidity, light's not going to make it from A to B, possibly.
light is going to spread out so it becomes fainter the farther away you are, but those photons aren't just going to stop.
I know, but we also have a thing called atmospheric turbidity. You know what that is?
It's not going to make photons stop.
It will. It can, and it does, and it will. Absolutely.
And how do you know that?
Look, because I know what atmospheric turbidity is. That's how I know that.
Okay. Let's see. Look up atmospheric.
I mean, your light. You might even grant you that light will go forever in a vacuum, but you haven't got a vacuum to test it in, so you're cooked already.
No, you're not. What do you mean?
Well, you've got particles in the atmosphere, mate, and light gets blocked by particles. So, yeah,
It doesn't get blocked through a gas. Light travels a tiny bit slower.
He's
When have you ever
saying
seen
the vacuum's
perfectly-
the assumption.
But I mean, even
there's no
if
particles
photons
in the
hit a
air?
particle in the atmosphere and get, say, redirected or whatever, that photon isn't going to stop either. Might go in a different direction. I mean,
Another thing it's not stopping is your remarks about the bloody never-ending photon.
What are you saying
Yeah,
is causing the
in an
reflection?
environment that doesn't exist.
what
Yeah.
environment
Causing the
doesn't
reflection.
exist?
Where does the vacuum exist in nature?
Nobody's saying that it required a perfect vacuum.
Well, that's the other clause. It's not a perfect vacuum. It's a vacuum. It's a void. That's what mainstream science says. That's what it's always said.
No, it doesn't. Mainstream
It
science
does.
says that there are particles
See, now
appearing and disappearing all the time
running.
in any
You
sort
can't
of
run
space.
from this. That's
What
what
are you
Flat
talking
Earth
about?
does. It puts mainstream science under the microscope and looks at its claims,
But
and
you're
then
just
it
saying that
examines it.
you just said mainstream science made that claim. It doesn't make that claim that
It does.
there
It
are
has for
perfect
years.
vacuums. No one is
And
saying
everything
there are
Jeremy's
perfect
saying and
vacuums.
everything Jeremy's saying and everyone here is saying to you goes through atmosphere, light, anything.
Right, of course it goes through atmosphere, but then eventually there is no atmosphere and there's just slight number of particles. But again, nobody claims that, like, say, halfway between the Earth and the Moon, that it's a perfect vacuum or anything like that.
Well, the last thing I'll say, and not to butt in, sorry to butt in, but I couldn't resist. That I was watching a movie last night, and they say it to children, they say it to other people too, that the stars have burnt out and that light is traveling, right? And they're not even there anymore. Like, mainstream science says some weird stuff.
Well, but I think what they may have referred to is that since it takes time for light to get from one place to the other. What you're seeing could be light that was emitted a long time ago, and the star went out in that time period. So if you're seeing
Yeah.
as it was 100,000 years ago, it could have died out 50,000 years ago, and you would still
Can you
see it.
see
The
though
question
that
is coming. Wait,
the
when they
people
tell
in
us
this
the
discussion,
Polaris is 330 to 340 odd light years. Hang on, I'm still talking. Yeah, one light year, 6 trillion miles. So how do you validate all that?
right? That's the question, Gene, and to this guy, like this is all being called into question by regular people.
Another
Which
belief.
part? Which part?
So how do you validate all that?
Right, that's the question, Gene,
validate
and
that
to this
distance?
guy, like
can't,
this is
can
all
you?
being
Come
called
on.
into question by regular people.
Which part? Which part exactly?
Well, there's mainstream science makes claims about big bangs, billions of 14.5 billion years ago, and on all the way to 2025 right now.
Right,
And
but
we all
it is
believe
always careful to say that we are not 100% correct. That is just what all the data is telling us.
Well, we're telling you it ain't right.
something's up.
No, okay, but I'm just correcting the claim. Nobody says that they know 100% that all those things are true. They're just saying that everything they have seen leads to that conclusion.
How long have you been in these rooms for, man? I hear that all the time. People claiming like 100% correct. So that's not correct.
But simply because
there's no one
somebody in
claiming
here
that
says it,
correct.
simply because somebody in here says it doesn't mean that is the official position of the majority of physicists and astrophysicists.
Yes, fair enough.
Majority, why is that a consensus or something?
No, science never claims to know 100%. Just in the way that Newton was superseded by Einstein, people now don't say that Einstein's theory is 100% correct. That there could at any time come along another theory that's more accurate. That
There's wiggle room, right? There's wiggle room.
There's always, yeah.
You know,
Like, I mean,
no.
what's interesting, right, is they don't claim 100% correctness, but they behave as if it is 100% correct. So
Because
like,
it makes accurate predictions.
No, they pretend like they know. They claim they know.
They do know.
Well, who are you
The measurements
who are you
are
talking about in particular? I mean, you can't count people that come into a Discord server and talk.
It's not directed at you. Yeah, it's not a
I'm not talking about
personal, jab at you. It's just a...
I know. I'm just saying that there wouldn't be any competent, say, physicist or astrophysicist that says that every single thing that modern science says is true. Couldn't come along. Something else couldn't come along that could be better. It would still have to, because the stuff that we have now still makes accurate enough predictions. But if something came along that did it better, they completely, acknowledge that.
Have you ever seen Neil deGrasse Tyson present on one of those nighttime television shows like Colbert or something? And he's sitting there going like, the stars are billions of years old, like all of the atoms in your body were born out of a star. They come up with this sort of like pretty romanticized soliloquy of sort of, poetic terminology. Mate, he's saying all the things that you're saying that he's not saying, basically.
There's a lot of problem in communication in the scientific community. Take dark matter, for instance. That was just a random thing that somebody used to refer to the fact that something, from their perspective, is causing galaxies to rotate more quickly than they should. And the search for that doesn't even mean it has to be matter. It's just the search for whatever's causing it. It could be
the trick, though.
A variety of things.
They've got a placeholder that they know nothing about, which basically I would just say it's underwriting the entire basis of the claim of the cosmos, and they don't even know what this stuff is yet. It's required in order for their cosmological order to actually work.
Well,
That's
all they know is
preposterous.
That
Absolutely preposterous.
Galaxies are rotating faster than they should based upon the matter we can see. So there has to be a reason for that. They don't know the reason for that. So dark matter is just a term used to refer to whatever the reason is.
Well, there's a lack of material substance up there, right, to justify their conclusions of what we've presumed in the presumptive sort of causality of gravity, essentially. Yeah. But if you just get rid of this if you just dispense with this notion that matter attracts matter, we can get on with actually practicing further investigating. But because of that set format that they want to basically turn, the Earth into a globe so that matter attracts matter, they've had to then, as a consequence, sort of make this bold claim about dark matter.
Well, matter attracts matter is actually Newton. General relativity or Einstein comes along and describes it in a different way, which still gets basically the same answers as Newton did in normal circumstances. But when you get to more extreme circumstances, it offers better predictions. But in Einstein's theory, matter doesn't attract matter. What happens is that matter causes space-time to curve. And if you look at it from that point of view and base your calculations on that point of view, and then apply that to observations both here on the ground and in the sky, your answers are much more accurate. They often don't need to be that accurate. You can just
I'm happy with the distinction between the sort of relativity and the Newtonian differential there. Other people can go litigate that. I mean, I said matter attracts matter because that, what is it? Matter, like you're saying then, for updated matter, bends and warps space-time, and apparently there's not enough of it to do the bending that they require at these vast distances and great scales that they proposed as the interpretation of what's going up in the sky.
I mean, here's one test of general relativity that has been done repeatedly on the ground. One prediction of general relativity, which isn't, I mean, again, these aren't things that physicists come up with when they get around smoking a joint at night. I mean, this is basically what the equations result in, is that the closer you are to a massive object, the slower time will literally tick compared to something that's farther away from that massive object. So we can take two atomic clocks, put them side by side and synchronize them, and then take one of them and move it 10 feet above the other. And the one that you move 10 feet above the other starts to tick more quickly.
How do you know what they're smoking?
Well, I'm sure they're probably smoking it at some time. But again,
they're smoking that good shit, dog.
They probably are.
Well, I got him to concede. I'll take it.
Didn't say that that's what I got. I mean, the thing is, anytime you have somebody explaining physics in English, it's going to be inherently problematic because a lot of times it's just, this is how you calculate where this will be at this specific time and whatever. And from that, you get a translation into English. If you open up any like college level physics book, it's not just filled with paragraphs saying matter, attracts matter. It's just 90% math with some English thrown in, mostly to refer to the math, and the math is basically there to help you make predictions. I mean, the only usefulness of any scientific theory is to make accurate predictions. And so there can be things lost in translation, especially when you talk about trying to teach science, like all the way through high school. It's always going to be like a dumbed down version because kids don't know the math to do it in the first place. But again, what you hear in the popular press or in stuff like that, they talk about it in ways which is just really not accurate at all. But and people tend to then equate that to what the people in the field actually believe when used, and oftentimes it's very different.
Why would you say that what's the go with that disparity between the message and the apparent sort of official line of the professionals? What do you think's occurring there?
I mean, you're having people that work at, Wired magazine talking about, and they're talking about a subject that they themselves don't fully understand, while at the same time realizing that if they make the headline a little bit more dramatic, they're going to get more views. Science reporting is something that a lot of people who actually do the science get frustrated about all the time. There's a really good...
I invoked DeGrasse Tyson just before and all his pseudoscience that he spits out. So let's not pick on The Verge, like no-name journalists that we're not really familiar with. We can just use that fella, right?
I mean, it depends. I mean, there's a point at which...
He's an astrophysicist, man. He is the guy.
I know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, at what point, what level of evidence do you need before it's so close that, I mean...
Dark matter? Isn't it like dark matter is off by like a sigma 6 or something?
Again, when people say dark matter, they aren't saying it's a specific thing. It's just whatever the explanation is for why things that we see in the sky don't conform to what the predictions are making. And so everybody admits they don't know what it is.
Right.
They originally
But
thought it was a particle. They looked for that, couldn't find it.
But does it allow the interpretation that the stuff up in the sky is made of material substance, like a stuff that you can go touch and poke around with? That dark matter, right? That equation there holds that idea in everyone's mind. It's the only thing that's permitting it. If dark matter wasn't sort of like a proposition, we would have to start coming up with alternative versions of what the things we see in the sky are, right? And you might even actually come to the conclusion that it's some form of electromagnetic
Right, but
phenomenon
that's the
occurring.
thing.
And it would
People in
start
the
making a
field
lot more
admit that.
sense.
That's why they regret using the term dark matter, because it doesn't even need to be matter. It could just be whatever explains why the things are rotating faster than we would predict.
No, they're all saying it, dude. Lawrence Krauss, Cox,
They use
Brian,
the term dark
Fink,
matter because people have become used to it. They kind of regret the fact that that's stuck. But yeah,
how do you know that they regret that?
Because I just go. There's a really good YouTube channel by somebody who actually criticizes other scientists all the time. Sabine Hassenfelder, have you ever heard of her? She's a physicist, but is very critical of outlandish claims that other, both physicists and other, high-level scientists make.
But you're trying to speak for the people themselves. So why are you talking about someone else entirely?
No, I'm just saying that.
No. Just answer what I asked, please.
What are the people? You mean people in the scientific community, or?
Okay, let's rewind it just a second. You just made a bunch of assertions about these science communicators and specialists in their field and how they feel about particular claims. And then you excused it away with like, oh, well, they kind of regret this association and they wish that, like, where are you getting that opinion from, or are you just kind of manifesting it?
No, I'm getting it from them. I read articles. I'm sorry?
It's apologetics, yeah?
I'm willing to accept it. I just would like to know if you could reference in some... could you reference maybe one where like Lawrence Krauss or Neil deGrasse Tyson, or because I can show you a video of Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, dark matter, dark energy, we have no idea what the hell it is, and anybody who tells you otherwise, they're full of shit. So would that be somebody that you would think is a, you could quote saying that association?
Popular. I mean, again, the people that you mentioned are the ones that tend to be a little bit more charismatic, so that's why they get on air and are interviewed all the time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't, in subtle ways, misrepresent what the scientific community believes.
Well, who is deciding between who is deciding between one choice and another, one philosophy or another? Like, who's deciding what is this is the truth right here? I mean, if we can come in here in this room and just poke holes at all these different claims, who's the one who decides what is the de facto position of the current moment?
Well, that's a great question, Rick.
I think we got into this based upon whether or not science believes that everything that they're saying is 100% true.
Well, hold on. So we're agreeing here that in different publications, on The Verge, on Science.com, all these different places in many videos, that they are sending out a unified message. It appears they're sending out a unified message. Who is giving them that approval?
There is a mainstream narrative.
Why do they have a unibody of thought?
Oh, it's the reptilians, obviously.
No, it's
from a
philosophical standpoint, right?
From a very particular philosophical point.
Yeah, it's the reason why Edward Hubble basically said, yes, all of these observations can point that the Earth is in the center of the universe and that everything revolves around it. But we're faced with the, I can't remember his exact quote, but he's basically like, we're faced with this idea or concept that we just cannot stand against. So we're going to go with the opposite of that, based solely on philosophical beliefs, not based on evidence.
Yeah, are you aware of that quote?
What was the quote exactly? Is Edwin Hubble?
Edwin Hubble, I can look up the quote for you.
Yeah, I'll put it in the main chat for you. It's all right. No worries. Gotcha.
We can do this with you, mate, because this is what we've been doing for years.
Thank you, Gally, for posting that. We can just read it. You want me to read it real quick? Such a condition would imply that we occupy a unique position in the universe, analogous in sense to the ancient conception of a central Earth. The hypothesis cannot be disproved, but it is unwelcome and would be accepted only as a last resort in order to save the phenomena. Therefore, we disregard this possibility and consider the alternative, namely a distribution which thins out with distance. A thinning out would be readily explained in either of two ways. The first, space absorption of the nebula, where we see through the tenuous haze, they would fade far away and then could be accounted for by distance and redshift alone. And the distribution, even if it were uniform, would appear to thin out. The second explanation, oh shoot, I lost it.
1111 here in Scotland, Nepal.
Plausible either
So, what's the
the
subject?
apparent departure from this uniformity in the
Mainstream narrative.
fully compensated by the minimum possibility corrections for redshifts in the interpretation. Let me just skip to, therefore, in order to restore homogeny, damn it, somebody keep posting and it moves on me. But the unwelcome position, suppose the favored location must be avoided at all costs. Such a favored position, of course, is intolerable. Therefore, in order to restore homogeny and to escape the horror of a unique position, the departures from the uniformity which are introduced by the recession factors must be compensated by the second term representing the effect of spatial curvature. There is no other escape.
How scientific.
But
So it
again,
just sounds
basically
sort of like
saying-
doomsaying.
Yeah,
it only
basically the
depends.
gist of that is based on the cosmic background radiation and what it points to. The position is not congruent with their model, so therefore they have to throw it out based on philosophical beliefs.
But is this in relation to Edwin Hubble, or I mean,
Yes, Edwin Hubble and the CMB.
but he didn't have anything to do with the CMB. That wasn't discovered until years later. What he did is measure. He measured the redshift of light coming from specific stars, and if a light source is moving away from you, it'll stretch the light to longer wavelengths. So that's why they call it
My bad.
redshift.
I could be incorrect in that. I think the CMB actually backed it up, but
Right.
Hubble was faced with the observations and all of the data pointing towards the central Earth as well, and he decided to throw it out strictly based on philosophical beliefs.
Right, but again, you would have it either works and is consistent across all other observations that we make, or it doesn't. And so if he made a quote at the beginning about that doesn't. I mean,
if it's not, you fill the holes with things like dark matter and dark energy, where you're like, we know these things need to be present, we just can't account for them, and we know that they're there because they have to be there in order for our model to work. And since we know our model is correct, we just haven't quite figured out what these things are, how we could measure them, or how they apply to our model. But we know our model is correct, and we can't throw out the
again,
model.
as far as the dark matter is concerned, everybody has had theories that they're everything from a particle to the laws of physics themselves being wrong at long distances, to it being a particle we don't know, to a particle that we do know. Some people have said it might be black holes. I mean, again, nobody's saying they know what it is. They just know that what they see isn't consistent with what we expected to see. And so for whatever reason, whatever reason that causes that. Right.
For whatever reason, we don't want to go back to the drawing board.
No, they're saying
figure out that our
dark matter
foundations
is for whatever reason. We don't
want to go back. We don't want to go to back to the drawing board and figure out that maybe we have some foundational beliefs that are incorrect. No. We'll just say our model is correct, but all these things are just so weird and freaky. We don't know how they work.
No, when I said for whatever reason, I meant that's their position, that they don't know what it is. It could be for a variety of reasons. A particle, Einstein's theory of general relativity being wrong. People put out these theories all the time. It's just that it's a lot easier to say theorize it's a particle and look for that particle. But yeah, I mean, nobody is saying that they know specifically what it is.
But with all due respect to you, Physics Rocks, you're very reasonable. But for normal, regular people outside of physics or science to bring this forward, there aren't many of the voices, the mainstream narrators that say we do have a unique position in the universe, and it could be Earth is central, right? Stars, sun, moon, and stars revolve around the Earth. There aren't too many of them coming back to that, the ancient word.
But mate, did you not get the memo? The TFE made it to where it's a ball again.
What's your guys? I mean, I may regret bringing this up, but what's your guys' opinion on Jaren's trip?
It's fine. It's just more data. But to jump back to the ball after 10 years of knowing that water doesn't conform to the exterior of shapes is just hypocrisy. We've come too far, to take such a backward step now.
My uncle actually worked in Antarctica like more than 15 years ago, just for like 4 months, I think, during the summer. Because like during the winter, they actually, even in an emergency, they can't get to you. So only a skeleton crew stays over the winter. Like I think it's maybe 1/10 of the regular people that are down there. But
can I just say one last thing while I'm here, and then I'll zip it, I promise. Can you hear everyone here? We're trying to work with you and have this conversation and not be difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And cool. I mean, that's the thing that I've always, I see people on both sides, as soon as they realize somebody doesn't agree with them, they become, unreasonable, to say the least. And it's difficult to find, any group, or it's hard to find people that don't have like knee-jerk reactions. So please don't judge me on the actions of previous Globies that have spoken, because I guarantee you there's a lot of assholes in the Globie community too.
I think it's
both
important.
Sides.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's important for us to be able to discuss this without freaking out at each other, There's a reason why there's a bunch of people that have joined forces, if you will, Might be online, it might just be in pockets, but there's a vibe, there's a community. Like, I know that makes people cringe, but there is.
And to be fair, I actually respect a lot of flat earthers simply for the fact that a lot of them end up suffering significantly, like where with their family members and friends, if they're vocal about it, they'll say they're crazy, or those relationships can easily sour, and all the other difficulties of speaking out about something that a lot of people don't react to very well, unfortunately.
Thank you for that. It also goes the other way too. You can actually enjoy the benefits of sharing the truth, and it's amazing.
What was it? I actually discovered, it seems like the flat Earth has been around for a long time, obviously, but it seemed like it particularly exploded right around 2016, because I remember during that election cycle, everybody was talking about Breitbart News. And so I decided to go into the comment section of Breitbart, which then took me to the comment section of InfoWars. And then somebody said Alex Jones should debate somebody. And so I Googled that, and it brought me to like a YouTube channel that was based on flat Earth. And then, since then, as I'm sure you guys know, it's just gotten, it's just kind of blown up ever since then. As far as like the different number of people that are doing it, different number of YouTube channels. Does YouTube still kind of try to hide flat Earth YouTube channels when people do the search?
Yes, yes, the algorithms are still working against us, but if you type in a certain character content, it comes up, and then sometimes it gets offered in the main homepage. Okay, so that's okay. Now going back to the planets and the stars and Earth having this special position that the scientists, the cosmologists, astronomers have now realized. If you watch the documentary called The Principle, it's a great documentary. You see them actually hammer and tongs, working it out. Lawrence Krauss, Michio Kaku, and all the others there, Hawkins, they're all sitting down there and they're working it out brilliantly. It's called The Principle. And by the way, Sir Isaac Newton actually disagreed with the theory of mass attracting mass. He said it was an absurd idea. He didn't want his name ascribed to it. He didn't want to be associated with that because he couldn't prove it in his Principle of the Mathematica. He didn't prove that mass attracting mass. He couldn't prove it. He didn't want to know anything about it. Actually, that was Sir Isaac Newton.
Well, I mean, the physics that he put forward predicts things as if mass attracted mass. He had a problem with how is it that the Earth knows that the moon is there? Does it without actually physically touching it? There were some philosophical problems he had, but he still was able. Again, any scientific theory, the purpose of it is to make accurate predictions. And so, since he was getting accurate predictions somebody put out, he that's what he went with. But that always leads because I'm sure you guys have heard the different interpretations of quantum mechanics, where there's some that say there's a many worlds interpretation, where anything that can happen. It's not that those interpretations are using a different math or anything like that. It's using the exact same thing. They're just having philosophical differences over what that actually means.
If you watch, like I said, you watch The Principle, you're going to come up with a more realistic position there, and that is that they actually said this, ladies and gentlemen: space is flat. The universe is flat. Is what they actually said. The universe is flat. That's what they come up with.
Yes, thank you. Physics. Have you not seen The Principle? This came out like how many years ago now? 10?
2017, 2017, something like that.
What was the name's familiar, but
it's called The Principle. It's called The Principle. And another point I'd like to make is that
AL or LE?
Hang on. Principles.
I posted the link for you and tagged you in the live stream one text.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Riggs. And another thing you've got to remember that we, the flat earthers, have enjoyed 10 years of destruction of the heliocentric model to pieces, to smithereens, and it's been great. We've had success for 10 years. Okay, we haven't been down in the dumps. We're like helium balloons here. I'm ecstatic.
I don't think that. I don't think that can be true.
Oh, we most certainly have. Look, the globe does not exist. Simple children know it now. Children.
I don't think that narrative is accurate.
I don't care, Larry.
I don't care if you don't care, but you don't get to interrupt me either way.
Actually, as I was talking, you didn't say, can I just get a word? And you just jumped in. That's why I'm just carrying on talking until I'm finished. Then you may speak, Larry. Okay, or Laurie.
Okay, well, that's cool. Okay.
We, the flat earthers, have enjoyed 10 years of trashing this globe and bringing up the anomalies. It's been fantastic.
You already said this too.
It's been motivational. I just make sure you get it. Now you may speak, Larry. Laurie, whatever your name is.
Okay, thank you. Now, please do not interrupt. I know your horses are going to get excited. I came to this discussion in 2015. Flat earthers had a model. They had predictions. They had evidence. Then at some point, the discussion changed a little bit. It was like, well, actually, we don't need evidence. We can just assume flat earth. Then at some point, it was, we don't need a model. Then at some point, it was, we don't need a map. So it's been loss after loss after loss. You guys have been retreating from the positions you took up in 2015. And now most flat earthers are going to say, oh, I'm not even a flat earther because we have mountains. So I'm not, you are even ashamed of calling yourself that. So it's a, if you look at it honestly, it's a series of losses, not victories.
I've only seen the argument further,
of the flat earthers position. We come up. Yeah. This is just ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, because go ahead.
Everyone give Jen a second. His internet's a little slow. Let him catch up.
Yeah, I do apologise for the lagging there of my system. But basically, that was misrepresenting the flat earthers, ladies and gentlemen. That was, we do not run from the truth. We do not assume it's flat because it's measured flat, ladies and gentlemen. You can go out there, look for drop over distance, looking for the curvature. We want it to curve. We want it to curve, remember?
I can help you.
It not curving. There you go. Yeah,
I can help you, Jen.
help me.
Yep, I measured it to curve. I looked for drop over distance and I measured it to curve.
Yeah, and then you just you waffle on about refraction just to correct all your problems. Great. Dude, as far as the terminology of flat Earth is concerned, where do you think that term or phrase actually came from?
Which term is that?
Flat Earth. The one I just said, the one you kept on using. Like, you said that, I'm not even flat Earth. Like, you were sort of invoking the notion of the shifting claims of, the people that you call flat Earthers.
I guess you're talking to me.
Is it Lou?
Yep.
Yes.
Laurie,
yeah.
Yep.
Where do you think the terminology came? You said that people were flat earthers were invoking the terminology, like, I'm not even flat earther, and I'm just kind of curious, are you saying, your general reference was that our opinions keep changing or something, or like the culture within the community keeps changing for that matter?
Yeah, my claim is it's a history of retreating from your position. So when you first take a position that we do have a model, we do have evidence, we do have a map, and we call ourselves flat earthers. Now we don't call ourselves flat earthers, we don't have a map, we don't have a model, and we don't need evidence.
Who said we have a model? Who are you referring to?
Flat earthers in 2015.
One person might have said that one time, and now it's ascribed to everybody. That's the big problem with groupthink and painting with a broad brush, right? And just because things change and evolve over time doesn't necessarily mean that it's getting worse for anybody, because guess what? Science changes and evolves over time, even the mainstream.
My point.
So
you took my point, bro.
Sorry.
Well done. Keep going.
All right, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't mind if someone else said it.
Hey, Australian guy, where in Australia do you live, or do you live there now?
East Coast.
Oh, that's cool. My dad worked for Alcoa, the aluminum company in America, and they mine a lot of bauxite in Australia, and so they had plants over there. So he made numerous trips, but I never did.
Nice. So anyway, it would turn out that your critique, I think,
He made numerous trips, but my dad worked for Alcoa, the aluminum company in America, and they mine a lot of bauxite in Australia, and so they had plants over there. So he made numerous trips, but I never did.
Nice. So anyway, it would turn out that your critique, I think it was Lou or whatever it was, your notion that the inflection of the, I'm not going to call it the flat Earth community. I think it's just something we're into, like a heterodox point of position or a heterodox point of view. Even your critique and the shifting terminologies, that's just natural for the way, like an evolving idea. The terminologies change, it matures, all this jazz. So your criticism and critique actually kind of, that's the way it's meant to be.
Yeah, actually,
so everything changes. So everything changes, but there's the change that science goes through, and there's the change that false ideas go through, and flat Earth to me shows the latter. Let me clarify this by an example. If we as globe earthers would now start saying, sorry, I'm actually not a globe earther, we never said it was globe, we don't have a model, we don't have a globe, we don't have a map, then you would call us out by, hold on, but just a moment ago you said that you have a globe, what happened? And you would call us out, hold on, I thought you said you were a globe earther, what happened? And I thought you said you had a model, but now you say you don't, what happened?
Great.
Science doesn't progress like that. You were trying to claim that that's how science changes, but no, it doesn't. Science keeps evolving, but not in that way. Because that is negative. That is admitting we thought we knew, but oh no, we didn't. We were proud before, but no, now we are not proud.
Lou, you have to make a point and then stop and let somebody rebut that point.
I did
instead of
stop,
stopping and then overspeaking somebody when they start to reply to it.
The fact that was happening there was just people were trying to jump in and I wasn't finished. I think that's just part of normal conversation. When people are not finished, they will keep going.
I don't mind this gentleman's. I think English is the second language, so it's impressive enough in that regard. So yeah, I just got excited jumping in.
Yeah, go ahead.
What was the response to that? I think there's kind of overtones of communistic sort of ideology at work, and it's sort of the way it sort of plays on our minds in the way that we sort of judge people and go about critiquing other communities or other ways of thinking. I can't remember exactly what I was going to say, but it was to do with the way that you sort of, if a globe earther changed their mind about something, and then a flat earther would criticize them. This is communistic thinking. We should probably get out of it. We're here to talk as individuals to one another. I'm not here to argue with necessarily the globe. I'm talking to a person. The globe is an animate object, essentially. It's a model, and I talk to models.
Yeah, we can focus on the ideas rather than the people.
Just an observation.
Yeah, that was my point initially, but then you came back with well, you had a model, and now the model's different. No, that's not the case. Like I said, you were painting with a broad brush there, and you were lumping everybody into what one person may or may not have said. That was kind of my point initially. But yes, the ideas and concepts continue to evolve over time, and arguments continue to get better and better the more they're fleshed out. So there's just a constant change within that. I mean, that's the way science works. Science is open for interpretation, and when people come at what you're putting forth from various different angles, if the model holds up or the idea or conception holds up, it'll stand on its own merit. I'm sorry, am I breaking up?
You're busy or what?
Oh, somebody's hot micing. Who's hot micing?
Anchovy. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Yeah, I'll do it.
It is anchovy.
Who is it?
Okay.
Anchovy.
Yeah, execute anchovy.
I was just going to add in, if there's controlled opposition, which many people believe the CIA and other entities are partaking in, one of the straw man models they first proposed was the Flat Earth Society. So that's just one example of perhaps a government entity or a group of people putting up a model that could be torn down.
Yeah, the Flat Earth Society's claim is that gravity is caused by the Earth, that is a disk floating in space, is moving upwards at 9.8 meters per second squared, thus causing what we call gravity or gravitation. The funny thing is, that's actually congruent with relativity. But I don't think most flat earthers believe in either of those two theories.
Yeah. So the other thing was as well, like the characterization of the ideas, of flat Earth as an amorphous sort of structure. That just is a consequence of the way in which, you've got a centralized authority that, they do have their sort of rubrics and operations, and they're very sort of careful about what they state. That's afforded to them based on the established power structure as the way it is. This is essentially a rebellious crew of people that are starting to see the problems. It's always going to be a little bit more fractious and disordered from this end. So just once again, it's a consequence of the social constructs, not not actually the idea or the community in and of itself.
Yeah, that's a point that I
in
brought
one
up.
way. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It's a point that I brought up multiple times, that it's essentially a category error because one side does have a very homogeneous view of everything. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, yeah.
Yep.
One side does have a very homogeneous view of everything, and there's essentially a top-down authoritarian control on what is or isn't acceptable paradigms of thought. And you can't ascribe that same level of here's what the flat earth community says, because the flat earth community is very divided and people have all of these different conceptions and ideas that they're working with. So trying to apply the rules of one structure over to the other is just a category error.
Yeah, I would say that that's the homogeny is more on like a large broadcasting of a central idea when it comes to the mainstream. But even the mainstream is completely fractured when you get down to the nitty gritty of most aspects of their models of cosmology, for sure.
Absolutely. I was showing a professor of physics the deception from National Geographic and PBS, and then when I asked him if he's still as sure about his model, he said no. And then we pressed him on it again, and then but he changed his mind. I can actually post a clip where you can hear it from his own mouth.
That's interesting. Since it's a bit quiet, I can jump in, and I wanted to address the broad brushing thing. I was kind of broad brushing, but that's because I was responding to Jin, because he was also broad brushing that flat earthers have been winning and winning and winning. That's broad brushing. So I can also then broad brush and say, no, you haven't.
I appreciate that. So your response was just in kind.
Well, how would you define winning? Because as far as I can tell, I mean, flat Earth has grown over the last 10 years, and even still, it is still even after TFE, it's still growing. So, like, winning would mean it's not going away. So that would mean we're winning.
That's a good question. It's easier. Like, I typically think about like winning the argument, but if we talk about like sociologically, I know that flat Earth isn't going away anytime soon, but movements can be successful even when they are completely false. Like even cults can grow. So I wouldn't. It's not too helpful to qualify it as, well, it keeps growing, so it has to be right, or it keeps growing, so it's winning.
Cool.
We should look at if it's true or not.
Cults usually have a leader. I mean, are you proposing that we have a particular leader and we're just all going to die one day? We're all going to suicide or something like that?
That's also an interesting question. I would say it's not a cult, but it approaches cult-like, and you have several. I'm just giving an honest answer. I'm not trying to like slight you or anything. You have several like authoritative characters like Nathan Oakley, Bev. Even
absolutely.
though he doesn't say he's a flat earther, I would qualify him as a flat earther and a cult leader.
So here's the thing, though. We could say the exact same thing about your cult belief in scientism and your orators and your leaders like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Cox, right? I mean,
well, they would have much more of them and much higher funded.
Yeah,
they say trust the science. We say go check it for yourself. Come up with your own interpretation. Here's the technique.
I do want to say. I need to interject also that, you said that in terms of the argument, I would say that more and more people have realized that the map and the fundamental aspects about how vision works in our atmosphere and on the Earth would essentially change what perhaps they expected at first when they got into flat Earth, especially when you are presented with a depiction which has been supported by so many different agencies that one might just assume that this projection is, what the Earth is. And I would say that could be a critical error if true. And so instead of just embracing a map, it's much easier to just say that let's just reevaluate, all the variables, and I don't need to assume a model or map at the moment. And let's start to look at all the different areas of science with a much more granular scale. And I would say on that front, overwhelmingly flat earthers, very often win most of their public debates. I would say by vote they do, even by an audience that doesn't even believe in flat earth. So I would say our arguments scientifically and supporting alternative cosmology is overwhelmingly growing and improving.
Yeah, so that would be
yeah.
Yeah, so that would be a much better way of putting it, in that, there is the popularity of an idea, which has such a low confidence level into an idea being popular versus an idea being right. So an idea growing just because more people believe it isn't necessarily a good way to say, oh, hey, this thing has progressed. If you're going to use flat Earth as an example, the better way to say how it has grown is that, in like 2014, the biggest things that you would have is, the Chicago skyline over like Lake Michigan or something, or doctored footage from NASA as like, all right, these are the peak pinnacle arguments. Whereas now you have people in all of these highly technical fields that can have really in-depth discussions and breaking down of the assumptions behind those fields in ways that could contend with somebody who is a full-blown expert in the field. That would be real progress.
I would say that's untrue. I don't think there is even one flat Earth scientist in any like high field that could compete with anyone. Can you give me an example of that?
It would be better if somebody was more engaged with the convo.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like that's basically asking, hey, I want to see somebody in the scientific field, which is generally funded by grants, going against the mainstream so much that they would be defunded. And you're just not going to see that. I mean, some people step out on a limb quite often. Lots of times it's more in the realms of dealing with the quantum and general relativity ideas and the application of the ether. But most of those people see what it's like to step outside of what is considered the acceptable bumpers or guidelines that you have to stay within. And as soon as you start to step outside of those, you lose your funding, you lose your credentialing. When we had a physicist, actually it was an engineer. I think he was a physicist as well. That was basically coming out and saying, here's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't add up that I just assumed because I wasn't thinking about the application of the globe model to this physics. Somebody found out where he worked and got him kicked out of his job and his credential taken away. So there's that.
That's the guy that one of the Flat Earth YouTube channels would show videos of him kind of very often. I forget which one. I think it may have been Glowbusters or somebody like that. Wasn't he like a relatively young guy, dark hair?
Yeah.
He was, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, he literally had to step away from everything that he was putting online, completely change his life because somebody figured out where he worked, where he was licensed as an engineer, and got him fired and tried to get his license taken away just because he had the audacity to come out and say some things that were not necessarily incorrect, but just not talked about. So
yeah, that's right, Brian. Yeah, and you'll see this actually start to emerge in other fields of science, like in biology and archaeology. There's a list called descentfromdarwin.org, where over 1,000 PhD holders are now challenging the Darwinian evolution idea. So absolutely, it's starting to emerge. You're going to see it happen.
Yeah, it's just a good way of putting it is, there's this comment that I just posted in chat. It's like, honey, come look. I found some information all of the world's top scientists and doctors missed. And this is like recently a big thing that like made the rounds. It's like, oh, hey, people are dumb and retarded for like trying to come up with all of this stuff, and that like leave it to the experts is essentially the idea. So if you're looking for people who are like experts at the top of their field that are sort of going against the paradigm, there are so many gatekeeping factors that intrinsically prevent that, because the systems in which people get to those positions requires a high degree of conformity, whereas there are just unbelievable amounts of examples to where this comic actually does take place and people actually do find things that all of the experts missed because they're just interested amateurs, and they come at it from a different lens that doesn't necessarily have all of the same pre-baked assumptions into it. And so many individual pieces of scientific pursuits have just been found to be, like total frauds because just some random interested amateur looked at the data with a different lens.
That's actually true. I remember one of the favorite stories that my father used to tell is the continental drift theory, because that wasn't proposed by any scientist. It was just a random nobody. I don't know what field he came from, but not in academic science. And now everybody accepts it as true. The problem with flat Earth is let's say that if you get into a high position in science, you get torpedoed because they don't want flat Earth there. That would still mean that then among you guys, because you are not top level scientists, you are just these random nobodies. When we examine your ideas, they have no validity. And if there was something to it, your ideas would have validity.
I mean, the question there would be, what is the measure of validity?
I don't know. Also, the disparaging statements and the generalities once again jump in. There's a PhD over at Ethicos who's recently flipped. And he worked for the frigging government. He's like a frigging secret agent. He was like, he knows passcodes that he's not allowed to tell us and stuff. Now, either he's lying, but I'm pretty sure we can go check up his credentials and you can go find him. He doesn't want to make it too public, obviously, but it's public enough. Like, everyone knows his full name, so... do you recognize that this sort of disparity? Sorry, whatever. Your critique is not really valid.
Yeah, there's multiple PhDs over there. You have Bennett, you have Dr. Bennett, you have Dr. Mike, you also have Stephen Young.
PhD in what, though? I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt, but there's a lot of people who might have a PhD in theology, but then decide to start making claims about a different area.
Bennett was in physics, PhD nuclear physicist, Stephen Young, right? So, yeah, I mean, one of them was, I think Dr. Mike was,
He's a computer scientist.
Yeah, computer sciences.
It's
But,
too bad
yeah.
they're not confident enough to come here and explain things to those of us who actually are out in the field doing measurements.
What are you talking about? He just did a presentation the other day and he showed up.
And then they disappear. Where are they now?
Robert Bennett has done plenty to show up.
Hey,
Stephen
MR?
Young has a whole channel dedicated and has written books about it. Okay.
MR?
Flat earthers, by
Maybe
the way. You keep saying, but none of them are flat earthers, so that's just something you keep missing or ignoring the fact. Bennett is not a flat earther, at least, correct? So
Bennett, I think, has an ether theory though.
ether is not flat. So
He's certainly geocentrist. He's
Stick with it.
geocentrist, and he is
Exactly,
ether.
yeah.
Yes, geocentrism and ether. He said he
Geocentrism
will not
is based-
discuss flat Earth publicly.
Yes. There you go. That's my thing.
Yeah,
That's
and you
what
could
you
see
guys
why.
keep ignoring about. You keep saying he's a PhD.
No, we're not
fine.
not ignoring it. You
Yes, you
realize that a flat Earth, if it is a flat Earth, that they would have had to have take a completely different avenue for many different areas of science like the speed of light, how it travels through different mediums, like the composition of the universe. Like there's so many different areas of science that depend on some foundational assumptions, and these people facilitate with the alternative. Doesn't mean they have to have a position on the earth. They can just be alternative
They
science
do.
people.
So Dr. Bennett at least publicly openly says, flat. He doesn't believe in flat Earth. It's wrong. That he just said it as a statement from himself. I'm not making anything up. Go watch the
When
video.
did Dr. Bennett say that?
It was one of the visit videos.
Is it one of
when
those
I
things?
when I asked
One
him
of those videos.
personally, and he was in this room, he said that he doesn't take a position on the shape of the Earth because it's not a scientific question. You can't actually look and know on the whole shape of the Earth. Like, yes, you can verify like certain areas, but if the sky is of a different composition, if it has matter instead of vacuum,
We are not
and there's
talking about-
containment,
okay.
then you would be making a larger claim. And he said it's not a scientific question, so he's not going to take a position on it. What he can do,
That means a lot, no? So
what he can do
Yes.
is he can measure within physics, and he can testify to it that we are from a stationary position and that the lab frame is the baseline. And so from his expertise, he can say that. That's his position.
But that's another thing. When you say expertise, is interesting one. He is one person, or I know
Yeah,
there are many.
one of many. Absolutely.
How many? But again, one of them is probably doesn't fully understand. But then you get things like Leonard Susskind, which is, I would say we don't have anyone who knows relativity better than him, which he laughs at the idea. So which one do you go for? Someone like Leonard Susskind, which has way more experience in the field, special relativity.
Oh, you can go with whoever you want, man.
Yeah, I mean,
go with
in
whoever
this,
you want. And
That's not the case. But you guys
one
keep
sec, bro.
saying we have a PhD, someone with a PhD with this.
Well,
with this-
that's the
with this stance.
discussion.
But
We're not
again,
appealing
he's
to
not
PhD.
Earth, but you are.
But
Someone
this is
else
the
brought
point.
it up.
One
This is
sec, one
just
sec,
part
one
of the
sec.
discussion.
Like, dude, this has got nothing to like. This whole idea of the shape of the Earth is actually not the big thing that we should be talking about. It's just recognizing that you can and I think are being lied to on a cosmological scale about the nature of reality and why we're here and what's going on. If you guys want to bloody pigeonhole it into like just looking at the shape, I mean, go for it. But there's a whole bunch of other questions that we have as far as the orthodoxy by which society seems to be operating by. Yeah.
That's a really good point, because typically the adversaries to things that might go against what they were taught in school, right? Like the mainstream narrative. If you disprove or you have good valid evidence that certain aspects of our reality, our cosmology, maybe things that we've been taught about, the way that we visually see the world and all these things, if you start to break down those walls, the immediate knee jerk is, well, it doesn't prove that the earth is flat. This doesn't prove the earth is flat. You can't prove your flat earth with this, that, or the other. But the problem is this whole conversation is opening up so many doors to so many different conversations and facets of science that everybody wants to draw it back solely to the shape of the earth. Once they start to get a little scared that their foundation of what they think they know about their reality is starting to shudder at all.
Okay, so
Yep.
here's the thing. I don't think we are bringing it back to the shape. You are bringing it back to the shape. That's my observation. I'm not saying you're doing it, so don't get me wrong.
Oh, I mean, I can show you that the government lies to you, man. Yeah.
Okay, that has nothing to do with the shape.
Well, then, but you said that we're bringing it back to the shape, right? And I said, well, let's go talk about how the government lies and how religions lie to you.
Government lies.
And then you said it's got
government
nothing to
lies.
do with the shape.
No, because I'm just jumping. I know you are going to connect it to this. Okay, what does government has to do with anything? Government lies. I know. Did I say government doesn't lie?
Okay, so they come up with regulations that basically are enforced through their laws. Yeah, and those regulations are based on quote unquote science.
Also,
so this is how this cake is.
Okay,
This is how this
this
piece
is
of shit's being made.
Okay, so this is like, you jump in different places. Okay, what does government has to do with anything? Government lies and
government's
What do
in
you
charge
mean?
of propagating the ideas to begin with through the school system,
What
right?
ideas?
So
What ideas? What school? Okay.
propaganda can be inserted into that curriculum to get people to think a certain way.
I disagree with that to an extent.
Dude, grants
An
go
example,
to the
wait,
idea they
let
want
me.
to
So
support.
the school I
If I
went
want
to,
to, if
the
I want to
school I
come
went
and
to,
support
the
something
school.
that goes for our ideas, I'm not going to get grants for that.
Okay, no. The school I went to, school I
It's a good
went to,
example too.
there were certain things the government enforced. Okay, the government was enforcing. Not happy. It's the fucked up government my country have, and I am admitting it's really fucked up. Okay, but as an example, the way physics was taught to us, chemistry was taught to us, has nothing to do with the government. With just
Yeah, it
by
does.
science, but they would teach.
It's within the curriculum.
You can
Here in
tell me it
Australia, the
does.
curriculum is controlled by government agencies. Period.
Is Australia same as where I'm from?
Don't know, but most of the
There
world,
you go. But that no,
particularly the
most of
Western world,
no, really no.
all of them actually, yeah,
Also in
they've got
UK,
curriculum set out by the government.
also in UK, I can tell you, no, it's not the good. Here's the thing: you keep saying government. Okay, maths is maths. What government what control government has over it? As an example,
There's different
give you
types
one.
of math. And there's different ways.
Different type
I
of
can
maths. 2
explain
plus 2
it
equal
now.
4.
So
No
the
matter where you
way
go.
that math is taught in the United States completely changed a decade ago. So the application of math and how it is taught to students, meaning the way that they approach math, changed completely due to
Common
government.
Core.
Okay, so when you say that, okay, this is the thing I'm saying. Maths is maths. No matter where you go on this planet, maths is maths. Agree? Algebra is
No.
algebra.
No.
A plus B equals C, or sorry, A2 plus B2 equals C2. You telling me it's a no?
But it's
is difference in
literally a
different
global
countries?
empire. It's literally a global empire. You're saying that, oh,
Okay,
you
there
can
you
go
go.
anywhere
There
outside
you
of the
go.
empire,
There
and
you
the
go.
math is all
There
the
you
same,
go.
bro.
Okay,
Dude, you got
perfect.
it.
You get
You
to my
continue
previous
to
one when
talk
I said
over
I'm
people.
jumping ahead.
We
Maths
can't
is
hear
maths
what
no
you're
matter where
saying.
you go. Yes or no?
We can't hear
You're
what.
not.
Dude, you
So
can't ask questions and then continue to talk. Nobody can
sorry. Go
hear what
ahead.
you're saying, and it's not a conversation. You have to let people
You're not giving me
hear
the
your
answer. You're not
question,
answering my
and you
question.
continue to talk over me while I'm telling you that you need to refrain from that. Like, if you can't control yourself, we'll just have to put you on mute, respond, open your mic back
Carry
up,
on.
and mute you again. We don't want to do that. So now you've diverted away from this, right? You're saying math is math regardless. Math is not science. We were talking about science. So now you're diverting away from that. And government does control and regulate all of the curriculum, even so much as that propaganda can be put into subjects where it's completely irrelevant information, but is put into the questions that are theoretical for other topics, meaning they can implement certain questioning for a topic that is not related to, let's say, climate science or global warming or climate change, but in your economics class, a question that you have on your test or within your pretest or examples given within your textbooks could allude to things related to global warming and the like, right? So there's so many different facets of how propaganda can be layered into education, and all of that comes through the edicts of government, unless you know of a country that doesn't set regulations on their curriculum.
Finished? Are you finished?
Yeah, he's done,
Okay.
man. You don't need to
Okay, it's
emphasize it.
done. Okay, no, because I think I need to. Otherwise, it sounds like I'm jumping on other people, which I'm not. None of the things you said answer my question. So maths is not a science. I get it. Okay, is chemistry a science?
Yes, chemistry is a science, but here's the
Okay,
thing.
then.
The
Wait,
explanation as to what's
I wasn't
taking
finished.
place in chemistry.
I wasn't finished. I wasn't finished. I'll let you
You
talk. I
were. You
wasn't
asked a
finished.
question, man.
No, I
You
wasn't
just didn't
finished. I
like
was
my
about
answer.
to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just ask you: is chemistry a science? Is a yes or no?
It is.
And can okay, good. Okay, now
What
chemistry.
does that mean?
The chemistry you learn, the chemistry they teach in US is the same thing that the chemistry they teach in UK. It's the same thing. The chemistry I taught it. They taught me back in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
What does government has to do with it? Government didn't
Yeah,
control the chemistry.
it's hold on. It's the
No,
government explanations as to what's taking place within the chemistry, which can be and are open for discussion as to the chemical processes, why they take place, the inherent properties of things is in question.
H2O. Yes, we agree. It's water. H2, helium.
Disagree.
Disagree.
Oh my God!
Water is
Everywhere
water.
on this planet,
Water is
everywhere on
water.
this water is water. Everywhere on this planet you go, if they ask what is water, they would say it's H2O.
Yeah, that's because of your weird scientific paradigm.
Oh, so okay, so
It's actually indicative of
what
global
is
empire.
Well,
it's a global
let's
empire?
ask him
What
what his
is
conception of what hydrogen is. So, what is hydrogen?
hydrogen? What did they teach you in school? It's the same thing we learn as the same thing you learn. Okay, let's
So,
talk
are you
about
going to answer that or not?
Yeah.
what do you mean?
How do you know that water is made of hydrogen and oxygen? How do you know that?
It's what they taught us back in the school.
Exactly. So you don't know it.
But
You
it's
just say,
no
you're just reciting from the
no
textbook, dude. And that is actually the
no
trappings of what we're trying to point out here, dude. Like these are
It's
the
not a trap.
trappings that they set up
It's a
for you.
trap. Where did no?
And
Okay,
now
so
you
here's the
believe
thing.
something that you've got no substantiation for.
No, I have a
What they
perfect way
taught
of
us
putting
about
it.
hydrogen, what they taught us about hydrogen back in Iran, it's the same thing what they teach you back in US. It's what was something you learn in Australia. You
You
tell
keep
me the
pointing out
entire
global
planet,
empire.
the entire planet decided at some point a textbook which can be so much different throughout the years and years. They decided, okay, from 100 years ago or whatever years ago, X many years ago, sat down and said, okay, within the entire planet, we're going to pull everyone to hydrogen is not what you think.
No, it
No,
actually has
so
changed.
here's
The atomic
I'm
model is
lost.
not what you were taught anymore, or at least it's not what I was originally taught in school. It's changed. So yeah, things change, and guess what? Just because they're did you ever take a class, actually, since we're talking about school, did you ever take a class on like logic and critical thinking? Because what you're doing right now is going against the ideas of logic and critical thinking, because you're putting forth a logical fallacy, which is an appeal to authority, and another one called appeal to consensus.
No, I have a perfect way of putting it that doesn't have anything to do with arguing about atomic theory or anything. So let's say that everything about H2O, hydrogen, atomic theory, all of that stuff is correct, right? There's a difference between the macro lens and the micro lens. So observing one phenomena, you can observe it at the tiniest minuscule detail, and you can also observe it at the broadest scope detail and everything in between. But the question is, like, you are never going to be able to learn every single thing about every single aspect of water, as an example. Like, you're not going to learn about all these different forms of water aside from gas, solid, liquid, even though there are other forms that water could take, as an example. So in this sense, the way that something is taught of giving you this particular lens of thinking about water in a atomic theory, as an example, will influence the way that you are taught. A good example of this would be that, there are certain school systems like the Waldorf school curriculum structure that doesn't teach kids how to read until they're like 7 or so. And they specifically do that to keep children more in the symbolic world as opposed to the like the literal, like, written world. And they specifically do that as a good thing. So in the sense of reading is, could be said to be a good thing, but the way that you teach it, when you teach it, all of these things changes the way that somebody views the world. And so the structure in which, even if everything you're teaching is pure fact, the structure in which it is being taught, what ages it is being taught, directly influence the worldview that somebody has, which is a form of propaganda. And that is something that is essentially globalized in form.
I hear you. The part I'm not getting really, the part I'm not getting is when you're saying government control. I just want to know, when we talk about chemistry, what does my government has to do with chemistry?
They enforce the curriculum. There's not a single modern Western country that doesn't have a government enforced curriculum. as
I'm
the
not from
general
a
rule.
Western country.
Just
I'm not from
simply,
one
you
of,
could say that there's a regulation of chemicals permitted within the population, right? So you want to know how they control chemistry? There you go.
what?
What you're
Okay.
allowed, like what government. So you're aware, like, I mean, if you're familiar with the US, marijuana still a Schedule 1 drug. Can't do any research funding from the government for that reason.
Yeah, in that sense,
Therefore,
it's
We're
you have
talking
a
about
lack.
school. We are talking about school. We're talking about school and education in school.
yeah, and
We're
doing
our
different
government, right?
experiments with different substances could be something that is impactful for your education. And so, because some substances are illegal, you can't do experimentations with them because of like safety concerns or whatever, which would influence the way that people are taught.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
That I
to the
get.
way what
That I
Russia, what I'm
get.
trying to get at here in conversation with you, my man, is that it's not about what to think. It's like more about the how to think of these aspects and like how they get away with the lie.
Listen, as I said, government lies. Get it. I agree. I'm not denying the fact. Okay. Still, what I'm not getting, and I heard this you saying this a number of times, you said, "Oh, education bad. Education is this. Education is that." Okay. My problem is, I keep saying to you is, yes, maths is not a science. I get it. Okay, that's fine. I'm not arguing it. But again, maths always everywhere on this planet you go, maths is maths. Okay, there are different ways, different levels they're teaching you. Okay, it's maths. I learned physics about 20, 30 years ago, give or take. Okay, and I'm helping my kids with their physics. It's the same thing I learned 30 years ago. Gas law is gas law, gravity is gravity. They're all the same.
Cool.
It was just a different way of teaching. I learned in a different way. They learned in a different way.
Great. So you're still
What was
inside
it?
the
All of a
empire,
sudden,
and then you're commenting on the curriculum and the quality of it. I tell you what, man. Like, you
it's a
can say that
different. Okay,
math is
we
math,
keep
and math is the same all around the globe, right? But the issue is that you actually like what ask yourself, like, what could be potentially missing from the math curriculum that's not being taught? It's not about
computer
what you
science is
are
computer
being taught, it's about
science.
what you're not being taught. And the absence of information is a lot more difficult to detect because you'll just look at math and the curriculum and say, oh, look at all this math. Look at all these different types of math. But you actually, like, there could be an absence of some particular type of mathematics that might be quite useful in us for us to actually dissolve this empire that's been built up around us. But you
Okay,
won't
let's
know
sit and
that. You
discover
won't
it. Okay,
explore
now
it because
let's.
you think all options have already been explored.
No one. I don't think. I'm not saying all the options has been explored. I don't think anyone in this room would suggest or even remotely suggest everything has been explored. The whole idea of science is we don't know anything. We don't know everything. We're just trying our best. We're doing our best. I'm in computer science. My degree is in computer science. Well, I've got and maths, so I know this, and I'm doing my PhD right now, so I know these sort of things. I should know. I'm studying like mad. Okay, you're not in computer
Good for you,
science.
man.
No one claims this. I'm doing AI at the moment, as you guys have been said a number of times. And not claiming we know all of it. We just keep finding number of things. Things keeps popping out. Okay, why? Because research. Because in science we don't know everything. That's not the claim. And I don't think
What?
that
AI?
anyone is.
Whatever's coming out of AI, you would recognize, right, that this is the most powerful tool that's being provided down for human beings. Like, it's kind of like this is the reinvention of the internet. That's going to be controlled by the central banks, right? They're not going to release something that would cause too much chaos for their control. Like, they would have outlawed this, just like they're trying to outlaw guns.
Okay, I heard this a lot and I kind of hate it. Okay, I can give you a very good example. A lot of people say, "Oh, AI is this, AI is that." Yes, AI has been around, but suddenly evolved. No one denies that. OpenAI, prime example, but it's not what you think it is. It's clever, it is, but it's not as clever as you think it is. It is.
Right, I agree. It appears to be more
Just the
clever
hype.
than what it actually. Sorry, you
There's a lot of hype
might have
around.
dropped out.
I was going to say, sorry to cut you, but there's a lot of hype around it.
Yeah, sure,
It's not
because
as clever as it is.
it's going to take all your white collar people, and they're going to be redundant now. Everyone's going to run back to the
No.
blue collars. Well, it's just an
Well,
option, maybe, right? And I just want to point out, I was thinking about this before, and didn't quite get a chance. There was other things that I wanted to say, but there's a fella that's running around on these forums. His name's Rick. He usually has a like a Goku icon. Really good at math. Studied math. I think he has a master's in flat earther. He, like, in his exploration into this topic in general, I can't articulate. Maybe someone else who's already listened to him here could articulate it better than I can. But there's a whole different way that we can think about circles. Like, this whole notion of pi is a narrowing of the geometry and the understanding of how circles work. And he's got a completely alternative way that still describes what a circle does and how it behaves, but you don't need pi. And his hypothesis essentially is that this controlling of the education system, the way that we just think about circles and pi, is a sort of like a force feeding of the way to think about that geometry. And it's sort of, the consequences of it is to, I think, I'm just saying, like, there's a lack of different alternative ways of thinking about how circles work. And it actually leads to globe. Like, this is a sort of, I don't know how to finish off what I'm trying to say.
If that's really the case, have you ever heard of Fields medal? It's in the book.
No.
It's like it's the
Oh
biggest
God,
event.
here we
It's
go. If he
only
would have discovered something, then he would have gotten a Nobel Prize or Fields Medal.
no. But why not? No, why not? You know, and it's not anything. It's nothing to do with what you think. It's basically it's the highest you can get in maths. Only
P. Diddy got a
handful
whole
people
bunch of
have it.
awards for his music, bro. Right? But you
This
recognize
is
what's going on
different.
there.
This is different. This is for people for
No, it's
genuinely for the
controlled,
people
man.
with the highest level of maths. No, it's not control. It's just
Very
you
controlled.
need to be some super genius to get this medal. It's nothing.
If I
to do,
made
it's
the
not a
best
normal
movie
person.
ever, would I ever get an Oscar?
Nothing. That's a bad comparison. Come on, dude.
Have you seen The Room?
It's a